Well, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back. It's been a while, and I know that. But I'm back again. I swear I will try to get more consistent on uploading. Just life is crazy, you know. But we're going over a new deck today, and it's a fun one. It's a deck that I've wanted to build for a long time in real life and never got around to. But now that things are getting a lot more stable in my life and everything else, I actually think I'm going to take the time to build this deck. So we're going to get right into it, and it is the Gitrog monster. So Gitrog is really tough to build for a casual environment. It is a really good, at least last time I looked into it, it was a really good CDH deck. Maybe not the best, but it was good. For casual play, it's just Gitrog is so hard to not make overpowered for a casual table because you sneeze at this guy and get so much value. So 5 mana, 6/6 legendary creature with Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice the land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. So it's that last line of text that really makes the Gitrog monster extremely powerful. The fact that anytime a land card enters your graveyard from anywhere, you draw a card. So the way that I've built this deck is it is built all around sacrificing lands to draw cards and then replaying those lands from your graveyard over and over again to get the maximum amount of value and either make a really big board, drain all your opponents, something like that. It's got a couple of different ways to finish out the game. So we're going to hop right into the deck list. The ramp is going to be quick. So we got Soul Ring, we got Arcane Signet, Golgari Signet, 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, and Fyndhorn Elves. They're all basically the same card. There they are. Birds of Paradise, Cultivate, Harrow, which will also draw you a card if you happen to play this after you have the Gitrog out. Same thing with Roiling Regrowth. We have Farseek, Kodama's Reach, and that's all of our ramp. Now we're trying to get into the meat and potatoes of the deck, if you would say. So first is actually a new card, so this is what I'm going to talk about for a second, because I haven't actually seen this card until I started putting the deck list together for this, and I was like, this is actually just pretty great. So it's a sorcery, 5 mana, 1 green, 4 generic. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both instead. So the first one is target player mills 3 cards, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. That is the line of text that we care about the most on this card, because one of the most fun ways to, play this is, say you have some other cards out that we're going to talk about later that make your opponents lose life when lands enter the battlefield. You have a way you sacrifice all your lands, draw a bunch of cards, and then you play this because you float all your mana before you sacrifice your lands because you're a smart player. And then you put all your lands back into play, and then you just drain all of your opponents for an absolute ton of life and possibly win the game because you just put 20 lands into play. Crazy. The second part is put X1/1 counters on target creature where X is the number of lands you control. It gains trample until end of turn. That can also be really fun because if you have the Gitrog out, you can throw a bunch of counters on Gitrog monster and give him trample and maybe hit somebody for lethal with commander damage, which would be extremely fun. A Ramanab Excavator, play lands from your graveyard. Crucible, same thing. Ancient Green Warden, really here for the same thing. Play lands from your graveyard, but he also doubles up your landfall triggers, which this is a landfall deck, so that's good. Perennial Behemoth, same thing. Play lands from your graveyard. Life from the Loam, return up to 3 land cards from your graveyard to your hand, so you can bring the lands that you're sacrificing back to your hand. You also have Dredge, so you can dredge Life from the Loam back to your hand, and you never have to worry about running out of lands this way, or things like that. Sylvan Safekeeper, sacrifice a land, target creature gains Shroud. So, sacrifice lands, draw cards, basically. News Constrictor, discard lands from your hand to draw cards. So Noose Constrictor is a really, really good way to keep you from getting flooded, because you can literally sit there and just discard lands until you have a handful of non-land cards. Splendid Reclamation. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Another way to just, put all your land cards right back out and get a bunch of landfall triggers. Lotus Cobra gives you mana every time you play lands. Pretty good landfall card. Avenger of Zendikar, one of my all-time favorite cards. Everybody knows what Avenger is by now. Big creature, make a bunch of plants, make plants real big, go burr. It's just simple. It's fun. Love Avenger. Obnixilis the Fallen is a card that the first couple of times I ever read it, I was a little underwhelmed, and then I put it in a deck, and now I absolutely love Obnixilis the Fallen. So, 5 mana 3/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player lose 3 life. If you do, put 3 1/1 counters on Obnixilis the Fallen. I was like, oh, landfall, somebody loses 3 life. But then Obnixilis gets really big, really fast. And he doesn't have any sort of evasion, but, I mean, you find a way to sneak him through one time, and you're just dealing loads of damage. Scoot Swarm, everybody knows this. You're going to start duplicating Scoot, and you're just going to have a huge board, and you overrun everybody. Golgari Grave Troll, the biggest reason it's in here is for that Dredge 6. So you can dredge this back to your hand, mill a bunch of cards into your graveyard, and then, draw cards from the lands hitting. So that's the biggest reason he's in here. He enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard, which it could get decently big, and you can remove a 1/1 counter from it to regenerate it. So, but it's really in here just for the dredge. 6 is in here because 6 is really good. So whenever it attacks, you mill 3 cards, and you may put a land card from among them into your hand. So you're going to mill some cards, and if you happen to hit a land, you're going to draw a card, and then you're going to put the land that you milled back into your hand. So that puts 2 cards into your hand. Then, as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. So that means, gosh, I really should have downloaded the image of this card that had the rules text on it. I believe it's you discard a land in addition to paying its regular mana cost. So in this case, you discard a land card to play something out of your graveyard, and discarding the land card for the retrace would also allow you to draw a card. Zuran Orb, sacrifice lands to gain life. This could be one of those things where if you have one of your big Haymaker cards, return all lands to the battlefield, float all your mana, sacrifice all your lands, gain a bunch of life, play that, put all your lands back into play, gain a bunch of life, get a bunch of landfall triggers, just good stuff. Titania, Protector of Argoth. Whenever a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. At a minimum, if she's out with the Gitrog out, you're making 1 5/3 every single turn. Ideally, if you have some of these other cards out and things like that, you'll be making multiple 5/3s a turn, which is absolutely great. And then whenever Titania enters the battlefield, return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield, which isn't bad. You get a free land back out of your graveyard. There's going to be lands in your graveyard with this deck, so that's not bad. The biggest thing is the 5/3s. Crop rotation. There are certain lands that within the deck you're definitely going to want to hit and make sure that you have every single game. Crop rotation helps you do that. Also draws you a card in the process. So it's just a decent card. Tireless Tracker, landfall, makes clues, crack clues. Tireless Tracker, get big, you draw a card. Simple. Tireless Provisioner. You play land, you make treasure, you make food. You gain stutter. Hate it. You play land, you either get more mana or you gain life. Good card. Eternal Witness, you get something back. With some of these cards, milling cards, there's going to be times where you're going to mill stuff that you didn't necessarily want to mill. Eternal Witness helps you get those things back. Azusa Lost Seeking, 2 extra land drops per turn. Wayward Swordtooth, extra land drop every turn. Oracle Moldiah, another extra land drop every turn. And you can play lands off the top of your library, which would be really good, because if you're sacrificing lands, you don't necessarily want to draw more lands. I mean, you sort of do, but one of the whole points of this deck is to replay the lands that you sacrificed. So this helps you, you can play lands off the top of your deck, make sure you're not drawing in and flooding out. Dry to the Elysian Grove, color fixing, extra land drop. Loot, extra land drop. And if you want to, you can pay 6 and tap it. You look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control, which is going to be a lot, from among them, and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So you can pay 6 and you can get a creature out of the top of your library. There's some things that could be really, really good to hit. Other things, I mean, a lot of the creatures in this deck are kind of small. So, you know, that it's really in here for the extra land drop, but that's also not bad. Aftermath Analyst, it mills cards, so it could possibly draw your cards, but the big thing is you sacrifice it and you can return all your lands. Iridescent Vine Lasher. Landfall, whenever a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponent, but a lot of times you're going to be able to cast this with the Offspring cost, so you'll have 2 of them, and then you can start pinging, people for damage every single time you get lands into play. World Shaper, it mills you cards when it attacks, so it can draw you cards when it attacks, and then when it does die, you return all the lands from your graveyard to the battlefield, which, if you ever manage to get it to die, if you have one of those other sack outlets or whatever, sack all your lands, draw a bunch of cards, put all your lands back into play. Pretty great stuff. Spring Bloom Druid, this is actually just another piece of ramp that I thought about later on. I was like, it gives me another body, sacrifices a land when it enters, so it could draw you a card, a little bit more ramp. You want a lot of ramp in this deck because you're going to have... Basically, if you do the right kind of turn, you're going to be drawing so many cards that you're going to need the mana to cast all the spells that you're going to be drawing, because you can really, really have a turn where you just absolutely snowball out of control. Underrealm Lich is busted all on its own. So, if you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put 1 into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. Pay 4 life, Underrealm Lich gains indestructible until end of turn, and tap it. So, here's the thing with Underrealm Lich. If you hit the right series of cards, you could draw your entire deck the first time you sacrifice a land with this guy out. So, say you have him out. You sacrifice a land. It's like, I'm gonna draw a card. Instead, I'm gonna look at the top 3. Say it's 2 cards and a land. You take the card you want, you put the land and the other one into your graveyard. Because that land went into your graveyard, Gitrog triggers, you draw a card. Instead, you look at the top 3. It is possible to whiff. It's possible you look at your top 3 and there's not a land there. But this thing can get you an insane amount of value on literally just the first turn that it's down. In this deck, this card is a kill on sight card because it will snowball out of control in an instant. Braid's Arisen Nightmare. So basically this is... I'm going to sacrifice a land at my end step, and I'm already going to draw a card. Now, each of my opponents, you either also sacrifice a land, putting yourself behind, or you lose 2 life, and I draw a card. So you're either giving me way more card, you're either giving me card advantage, or you're giving me even more land advantage. Either way, in this deck, Braids is going to put you ahead. Lumra is going to mill you, so it could draw you some cards, put lands into your graveyard, and then it's going to put all your lands back into play and give you a bunch of landfall triggers. Springheart and Antuco, you slap it on your best non-legendary creature, landfall triggers, you pay 2, and you keep duplicating your best non-legendary creature. Now we need some interaction. We got Abrupt Decay, can't be countered, destroy... with converted mana, destroy any permanent with non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. I hate when I stutter. Binding the Old Gods, I like it. It destroys a permanent, it gets you a land, and then it gives all your stuff Death Touch. Death Sprout, honestly, love this card. 4 mana, destroy a creature, search your library for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped. Super simple card. I just happen to love this card a lot. Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3, so destroy, interaction. Season of Gathering, super underrated card. Can be used to draw you a bunch of cards, destroy all artifacts and enchantments, or put a bunch of 1/1 counters on something, give it trample, things of that nature. Season of Gathering is really versatile, but it's mainly in here for the getting rid of artifacts and enchantments and things like that. Putrefied, destroy target artifact or creature. Constant Mist. It is a fog that you can reuse every turn. So 2 mana, you do it with its buyback, which is sacrifice a land, which in this case will draw you a card to put it back into your hand. Creatures deal no combat damage this turn. If you have enough extra land drops and can play lands from your graveyard, you can just fog all of your other opponents out of the game. Archdruid's Charm, it can be used to ramp, it can put point-1 counters on things, it can exile target artifact or enchantment, which is the main reason it's in here. Super versatile card. I like to put it in basically every green deck. It's just an awesome card. Saw in half, again, target something like your Iridescent Vine Lasher, saw it in half, you have an extra one, it increases your damage output. Saw in half your Lotus Cobra, saw in half your Ancient Green Warden, things like that. It gets really, really out of control whenever you start duplicating the best cards on the battlefield. Corrosive Grip gets rid of artifacts and enchantments, split second, great card. Deadly Relic, instant speed removal that you can cast for free. Damnation, the one and only board wipe in the deck, admittedly, could be seen as a bit of a problem. I don't think it is, because I think this deck is so fast and so consistent that I'm going to say 99 out of 100 times you're going to be the problem. So you don't necessarily want to board wipe, but you want to have access to a board wipe for the one time that you are not the problem. Elixir of Immortality basically keeps you from getting milled out, things like that. If somebody's playing mill, or if you're just churning through a bunch of cards, a bunch of stuff in your graveyard, keeps you from doing that. Same thing like Gaia's Blessing is in here, keeps you from milling yourself out, keeps other people from milling you out, put your best cards back into your deck, things like that, just for that extra little bit of consistency. And then we've got 2 finishers here at the end. Torment of Hailfire. So if all of your other stuff can't get it done, at a minimum, you will have ramped like crazy, and you can draw into this and cast a big-ass Torment of Hailfire to win. Same thing with Exsanguinate. This is the last card in the deck outside of the lands. Again, worst case scenario, if everything else you do in the deck fails, the one thing you're going to be able to do in this deck a lot is ramp and play a bunch of lands. So cast a humongous Exsanguinate after you've whittled your opponent's life totals down and everything else. And there you go. It can be a game ender. Normally, in these things, I do not cover the land base. And that's going to remain true for today. I'm not going to cover the land base, even though Gitrog is really, really, really reliant on lands. The reason I'm not going to cover lands, I don't know if I've said this in the past or not, is the land base in most decks is the most flexible thing as far as money is concerned. So, I know I started playing Magic as a teenager, didn't have a lot of money to spend on cards. A lot of the best lands tend to be really, really, really expensive, but you didn't need the most expensive lands. All you need to make a deck run is basics. And then there are a lot of other budget lands. But what I will say is about the Gitrog monster, the more fetch lands and the more utility lands you put in the deck, the more consistent and way more powerful this deck becomes. So say I play a Verdant Catacombs while I have the Gitrog monster out. I sack my Verdant Catacombs. I'm not only getting the benefit of the fetch, the consistency of the fetch, I'm also getting the added benefit of drawing that extra card. So, if you do build this deck, again, I'm not going to cover the land base because I never do. But just keep that in mind. You run, all of your basic land fetches, your regular fetches. You run utility lands that, you can sacrifice them to do things. The cycling lands are really good. I'm going to pay 1 and cycle this. So actually now instead of drawing 1 card, I'm going to draw 2. It just literally makes it twice as good. So, just keep that in mind if you go to build this, that the more money you put into your land base with this deck, it's not just going to add that extra color consistency and just that extra little, I guess consistency is the word I was looking for, to make your deck just run a little bit smoother as far as color fixing and everything else. The more money you put into this land base, the more powerful the deck is, period. So I'm going to link the deck list, the full deck list that's on Moxfield. That's going to be in the description. And I did put a land base together in the Moxfield deck list. But that is just the deck list that I would do if I had the money to do any land base that I wanted. Outside of like original duels, I didn't put any, even in the deck list because I'm not paying that. But, if I had a reasonable amount of money to spend on this deck, it's the land base that I would use. So, that's on the Moxfield deck list if you want my complete deck list, including lands. But you can get on there. You can play test the deck. I've already done it a few times. Seems like it plays absolutely great. So I hope y'all go and check that out. And I hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope y'all think the deck is good. And I hope you had a good time here with me today. Because honestly, 9 times out of 10, I feel like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But I feel like I put something pretty good together here. So, with that being said, I will catch y'all next time. And hopefully next time is not as long as it was from the last time to this time. I'll see you around.